So the last thing I'll be talking about in the month of November is my thoughts on Metal Gear Solid, the franchise itself. No, not Metal Gear for the NES or MSX, but starting with the PlayStation 1 in 1998, Metal Gear Solid 1. Because my backstory really is the first ever Metal Gear game I ever played, experience really is, or was, Metal Gear Solid 1 in the PlayStation 1 in 1998, when you play as Solid Snake fighting against Liquid Snake and his Foxhound group. Excuse me, at Alaska. So I'm not really gonna give the story for each of the franchise, but I'm gonna give my quick thoughts on of the Metal Gear Solid franchise from Mega Man. Mega Man. Metal Gear Solid from 1 to 4. So with that, let's do it. So the first thing is my thoughts on, of course, Metal Gear Solid 1 for the PlayStation. It also was in the GameCube called the Twin Snake. Unfortunately, that one was published by Nintendo, and it was developed by the people who did Eternal Darkness. I forgot their name. I forgot the developer's name, but yeah, it was a beautiful graphic. Same thing. They had a little bit more feature, but that was a game that was a Nintendo exclusive. That's why you never seen it outside of a game of Nintendo console. So basically, the idea of sneaking around, passing, infiltrating, knocking them out without you being noticed was something for me like, oh man, what is that? It's a game that you don't kill. It's the reverse of what Contra is. Because Contra basically is you shoot a lot of soldier in order to survive. This one is the reverse. So played it, it wasn't that bad. It was actually much easier because it's like The Legend of Zelda meet, I guess, Legend of Zelda meet, well, I guess it's just The Legend of Zelda, but you're sneaking. Because Metal Gear Solid 1 basically is, they based it on the MSX or the Nintendo Metal Gear game. It was an overhead, and you're trying to infiltrate the base. Same deal. When I played it, it wasn't that bad. I was able to, I finished it twice with a good ending, bad ending, because you do unlock something. So, it wasn't that bad, because I think one of the best things was it had a solitaire radar. So if you don't know what that is, it's a radar where the enemies is plus their field of vision. That kind of like what made it easy, since it is Metal Gear. So again, it wasn't that bad for me. I think that if you want to know the history of the Metal Gear Solid game, you probably want to try Metal Gear Solid 1 because it's much easier than playing the Metal Gear classic game. So that was actually when I was able to beat it. It wasn't really that hard sneaking around there the way they set it up. But then came Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. That was a little bit harder, especially for me, because the idea of sneaking around for me is not really something I like. I'm like a Dynasty Warrior guy, so I like to go around and just hack and slash or beat up people like Final Fight or Dynasty Warrior. So again, it was the same thing, but a little bit harder. But the problem was also with Metal Gear Solid 2 was the story wasn't really intriguing, so I couldn't get into it. Plus, you don't get, well, spoiler for people who never played Metal Gear Solid 2, you don't get to play as Snake. The second half of the game, or the main game, you play as a guy named Raiden, supposed to be like the next line for Solid Snake. He's supposed to be the next Solid Snake. It was a little bit hard, especially when you go to the tanker stage. Kind of like even though you have the solitaire radar, it's still kind of hard because every corner you don't know when you're gonna come around. Oop, they spot you. And here's the thing: is that when you get spotted, it's hard to fight back. That's one of the problems with the game because it was designed for you to sneak, not fight. So it wasn't a bad game. Story wasn't really intriguing than the first one. A little bit difficult in the other one, especially when you try to sneak around. But it's still really not that hard, but it is kind of tricky. Alright, so basically, that's Metal Gear Solid 2. And then comes Metal Gear Solid 3, a change of pace in the franchise. Why did I say that? Because Metal Gear Solid 3, it's actually, believe it or not, a prequel to the Metal Gear franchise. And you notice I said Metal Gear franchise, not just the Solid franchise, the Metal Gear franchise. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about the story about each of the Metal Gear and the Metal Gear Solid because they're all to some extent related. But Metal Gear Solid 3, let's just say, is the start of the Metal Gear franchise. Let's just say that. You're introduced by, basically, again, a little bit of spoiler here, but if you don't know it as of right now, I do apologize, is you do play the original Snake. If you don't know, this since Metal Gear, Solid Snake, and of course in Metal Gear Solid 1, Liquid Snakes are the clone of Big Boss, aka the original Snake. So, but in this one, takes place, 1964 in Russia. You do play as the original Snake. His name is Big Boss. So since it is in the past, it's in 1964. One of the problems of the game, I didn't really get into it too much. The reason being is that I'm guilty. I bought the game, but I never really touched it until Metal Gear Solid 4 came, because I wasn't not too fan of the Big Boss storyline. So I only played one, played it in easy, shame on me. But the problem with the game is that they got rid of, the Solitaire radar. There is no Solitaire radar in that game. Because it is in the past, in 1964, radar's probably still obscure. Instead, they have some new thing, either a sound sonar radar or a thermal radar, whatever, but it's not a Solitaire. So you can't tell where the enemy is, and you don't know where they're facing. That's a hard part. That's the problem with Metal Gear Solid 3. Unfortunately, because when I start playing Metal Gear Solid 3, I already bought Metal Gear Solid 4, but I had to play 3 to understand 4, because here's the thing, even so that the stories are not really related, you kind of need to play them to know a lot of the characters. That's just how it is. Sorry. That's how Kojima made it design. So, I beat it easy. The story, I think, is a little bit interesting, but again, couldn't really get into it because, moving to Metal Gear Solid 4. Oh boy, for the PS3. Tried playing the game. Didn't really like it, unfortunately. The idea of sneaking around there was really, really hard. First, still, no Solitaire radar, but they have a motion detector radar, or you can use other multiple radar. The problem with the game I have, and I even played in normal, either in easy, normal, whatever, is, for me, like I said, I'm not good with sneaking around. 1, 2 step, I hear the exclamation point. I'm like, oh, what? And I can't see the enemy, but they found me, but I can't find them. What's going on? Oh man, so it really took me a struggle just to finish that game, but I did manage to finish it, but I wasn't really too happy. Like, once I finished it, I couldn't really get back into it. Oh my gosh, it wasn't really, like I said, my personal opinion could be the black sheep of the Metal Gear, but I don't think it's not. It was a conclusion, but the spoiler in this one is the conclusion of Solid Snake's storyline. Its conclusion. So any new Metal Gear with him, I don't know what's going on. The next one, basically, if you want to know, is Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. It's a spin-off. And you play as Raiden, but that's a Bayonetta type game. You can sneak around, but it's more about hack and slashing. So I enjoyed that one, but that's a spin-off. So, and you say, that's it. What about Metal Gear Solid 5? Well, before I can even go there, I have to talk about Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Oh my gosh. I bought the HD collection. I did try the demo first for the PSP, but unfortunately at the time I was like, okay, I wasn't like wanting me to the Metal Gear, so I really couldn't care less. But the thing is, and I'll tell about the story, is that when I played Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zero, it was a different change, and that's when I got into the Metal Gear. So, but then before I can even play that, I gotta play Peace Walker to understand the story. And it was different than the other 4 Metal Gear. One is, they made it like a mission base, 360 controls. camera made it easy. Even I believe it or not, the first ever Metal Gear that not really the first one, but it's sort of I enjoyed, Peace Walker. I actually played it, quote unquote, religiously, trying to finish the game so I can understand it. So actually made better. And why am I saying that? Because, well, this is going to be a V-block for next time. My thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 5. This is the game, and you've seen my showcase them on my channel, my demos, my showcase, whatever. You can understand why I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, that's going to be in the next V-block. That's probably going to be in the month of December about it. My thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 5. Well, anyway, those are my V-block for the month of November. I do apologize for some of the delay, but now I finally did it. The Amiibo cards, Metal Gear Solid, the franchise, my thoughts about it. So, thanks for listening for this V-block. And then next month, one of them is I'll be talking about my thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 5.